All right. Well, today on the podcast, we have Colin Bennie on the show. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Thanks so much. Really excited to be here.
How's life? How's Virginia?
It's been great. Yeah, we really, it's probably only been the last 2 or 3 weeks where we finally hit fall down here, and so this time of year is always really nice to get to go out for runs and really enjoy the weather. Wicked hot down here all summer, so to finally feel like you get have those mornings where you get out and are just excited to keep running for as long as possible is always a nice place to be.
Yeah, I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, so relatively close to you.
Yeah, it is fall's a very welcome change of pace in terms of the temperature, that's for sure.
I know. Well, that's why even coming from Indiana, where I'm originally from, like, even there, the summers are so hot. It's just like, that's why I love fall marathons because you run in the heat all summer and that weather change. Like, if you get good weather, like if you don't run in the Chicago Marathon where it's 80 degrees and
Yeah.
hot, like, it's wild how much that does for your body.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you definitely forget at times to give yourself credit for having to sort of push through the heat as much as you do when it's hot in the summer, and yeah, to finally have the weather be on your side a little bit as opposed to sort of actively working against you always just makes it that much more fun to get out there and run.
So did that have something to do with choosing Boston over Chicago for your marathon this fall?
I don't know if I thought that far ahead. I didn't consult the Farmer's Almanac to see what the forecast was for the different races, but I think I was very excited to sort of have that opportunity to take advantage of some nice New England weather in October, and we were lucky. It was humid still for the race, but it was 55 at race time is never something to complain about.
So, okay, I'm so curious. Obviously, Boston was ran in the fall, which is just totally weird because it's normally a spring marathon and you're from Massachusetts. So, was it strange to go run the Boston Marathon in the fall?
It was definitely different. I think everyone who was part of Boston this year, people who were watching and putting on the race, were just so excited to have it happen at all that you couldn't really. I think everyone just pushed it to the side how weird it possibly could have been that it was not happening in on a Monday in April this year, and was just so thrilled that we were able to get out there and run, and it was just I think they made the most of it for sure, and it was spectacular. I mean, it was really not too far off of what a April morning would be like. So I think they did a good job of picking another weekend for it.
True, true. I feel like Boston in April though, it's just like I mean any marathon really, but I just feel like it's like such a roll of the dice of what kind of weather you're going to get.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I know. And I mean, there were definitely some moments coming into this one in October where it felt like it might have been a little bit of a toss up as to whether or not we were really going to get the same sort of, are we going to get some good fall weather, or if it was going to be some of those days where it just hangs on to summer for you. And yeah, I think we ultimately benefited from not having to deal with the potential of a headwind and 40 degrees and rainy. So
Yeah.
it was nice to dodge that for sure. Because as you said, it is just a toss up most years in terms of what the weather's going to be like and how much impact it's going to have on the race.
Yeah, it's because it's so interesting to see like who perseveres better through hot weather, who perseveres better through torrential downpour weather, things like that. So, seventh place, first American. What were the goals?
Honestly, not too far off that. So it was a pretty good. I was really, really happy with how it went. I think sort of a long shot. It's hard to go into races without dreams of being the first to cross the line, but sometimes it becomes clear pretty early on that that's just not in the cards for the day. But I was definitely shooting for first American, so I was really happy to come away with that, and then really to top 10 at a it was my first world major was definitely something that I was interested in trying to accomplish. And sometimes it, as we were just talking about, the weather can play a factor in some of the races. And I was being my third marathon, I was hoping to just kind of keep the momentum going and just have another good one because the first two went well for me. And ultimately being able to sort of capitalize on all the things that I was shooting for in terms of my own personal goals for the race was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, and we'll talk about the other races too. So Colin he ran in the Olympic trials ninth place and third place at the Marathon Project. So I mean, right, like all three marathons have gone pretty darn well for you. How did this feel being your first major?
It was pretty spectacular, really. I think starting off with trials, especially in 2020, when there were just so many people participating in it, was amazing. I mean, just everyone who got to run Olympic trials this past summer, I wasn't able to qualify for the 10K, but just the whole atmosphere of knowing that you're running for a spot in the Olympic team is just electric for sure. And the Olympic trials marathon was no different. And just all the bodies that were in Atlanta at that time, it was pretty amazing. Marathon Project was almost the entirely different direction, just very few people other than those of us who were running the race. And we all were just kind of we showed up after a wild year and we're just very much, we're here for business. We're running as fast as we can. And that was kind of it. But so then, Boston, it was just, being right across the street in the race hotel from the plaza where they have all the festivities and stuff like that. It's a carnival. Everyone's there having fun for 2 3 days before the race, and you just get to soak in the whole atmosphere for that much longer, and then to have you know thousands of people lining the course for pretty much the whole 26 miles was just amazing to have that much more sort of energy and electricity in the air.
Yeah, did you feel like I mean, I guess it's your first time running Boston, but did you feel like the spectators like were back in full force?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe if maybe some people have done it before would
Yeah.
would think differently, but it seemed hard to believe there could be more people out there.
Uh-huh.
There were
Yeah.
some moments where it was just deafening running through some of the sections. So if it could get more packed with fans, I will definitely have to make a trip back up to run it again to see that for myself.
Well, you have to run New York because I feel like that's the only thing that's comparable.
I've heard that New York is just amazing too. So honestly, now that this year it was tough to pick between all the three U.S. majors all being within a month of each other, but going forward, it's nice to have a few more options in terms of Boston being the spring versus the other Chicago
Sure.
and New York fall.
Why did you land on Boston over the other two?
I just talked about it with my coach Chris Fox, and we sort of decided that it would be pretty cool to have it be a little bit of a homecoming race,
Mm.
being from originally from Massachusetts. So there's definitely just kind of a personal connection there. And then just the sort of style of race it is with all the hills, here in Charlottesville, it's pretty darn hilly and we're right near the mountains. So we do definitely get a lot of elevation change in our runs and workouts. So Coach Fox felt like it was probably going to be something that was going to be really well suited for sort of my strengths in terms of running and racing. And I fully sort of believed him when he said that. And ultimately, it did kind of work out just as he planned and seemed to be a pretty good fit.
Okay, so now that you've done the course, and I'm sure you did tons of research, all the things before, but like now tell me what you think about the course.
I mean, the hills are no joke. And it's hard to not get too excited early on, when it is sort of it, relatively easy on the downhill, or the downhill section of the course, I don't want to get sucked in too much. But yeah, those hills are, I think, so I was lucky enough to get up and I ran probably about 20 miles of the course, in early September. I was up in New England for a wedding of a former teammate from Syracuse, and I ran the course then. And I somehow in the month from running it for my long run to the race, I swear there was another hill, another big uphill that got added in there somewhere because there were a few moments coming through Newton where I specifically remember I'm like, okay, just this one more, and then you're good to go. Or, Heartbreak's just around the corner, you're good. And then there was just one more climb that was left, and there was another one that just kind of sprung up on me, and I did not remember that. So it was, I think that definitely stung a little bit to have to get that in the middle of a race. But I love the course. I think it's a really cool thing to run point to point. I mean, obviously it's definitely a little can be polarizing at times in terms of whether or not times count or how to sort of compare it to other performances.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty cool to have every step of the course be something new and different.
Yeah, I feel like Boston, like Heartbreak Hill, I've done it a few times and it's like, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? It's like so hard to figure out where exactly you are on those hills.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, you're spot on with that. Yeah, I don't know. Did you have any hills jump up at you in
Oh,
that
psh.
course other than
Well, I
Heartbreak?
mean, I've never run it like you run, like I've never running it for the reasons you're running it. So, yeah, I always just though every time I've done it though, I'm like I never know exactly where I am in the segment of hills, right? Like I'm like, are
Yes.
we almost done? Is there one more? Was this the top? But again, like I'm running it in a completely different way than you're running the race. I'm so curious. So you're with the front pack, and obviously CJ like takes off, and he's like way ahead for so long. Talk to us about your thought process during all that.
Um, I think to start, with knowing how sort of downhill that first section was, I and seeing how everyone else in the front group sort of reacted, I had my main thoughts were just, oh, okay, I guess everyone's just sort of feeling it out and doing exactly what they have decided is going to feel best for their legs. And then CJ kept kind of getting further and further because I expected someone to sort of pick up the pace and just reel him in the first few miles or anything, and then it just didn't happen, and there was a lot of sort of um, felt like the pace was really lagging in our group at times. I
Mm.
think there were even in the downhill section, there were moments where I feel like we were getting above 5 minute pace or 5:10 pace kind of thing, which, talking with Coach Fox, he was sort of reminding me going in, he's like, all right, don't be surprised or, too worried if you hit something at, 450 or faster in the first section, just because you have the downhill going with you. But I I definitely deferred to a lot of the guys who I figured were going to be you were either more experienced running Boston or I figured had it in their minds that they were really going out to and like had a really really good shot of winning the race. So I tried not to take too much of the sort of lead role in terms of reeling him back in, but for sure, I mean around 10 miles there were moments where I kind of kept waiting for someone else to do something, and
Mm.
no one had really made a move yet. And I couldn't help but go, I think there's a chance that CJ might have just won this race by in the first, half of the, half marathon. He took 13 miles and he put enough distance on it between himself and everyone else in the race that there's no way we can catch him up or catch up to him. And, then pretty shortly after half was when a few guys really started kind of putting the hammer down. And I was still a little surprised that we ended up catching him just because, I heard a few people talking about, I think someone yelled that he was like a full 2 minutes ahead when we were around the half marathon. And it was kind of surprising to, I was happy that felt like we were all in it and, couldn't help but find myself wondering if it would have been worth it to go with him
Mm.
when he took such a big lead on everybody else, and so ultimately it turned into more of a race. But um, definitely a few moments of second guessing myself in terms of going, oh man, like you missed the move in the first mile of the race, and that was what really did it for everybody. But yeah, I was definitely playing kind of taking the back seat in terms of how best to approach the race for a lot of those guys. But it was surprising for a while there to see just how long some of the other guys were willing to wait before making their move to try to reel him back in.
Yeah, it's like a real test of patience, really. Well, I just think back to when Meb won in 2014 and he led for like pretty much the entire race and it's like I guess the key is like hanging on to that 209 or whatever, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And yeah, I think it was I only heard secondhand, obviously being in the race, I didn't get to sort of or see the coverage or hear sort of the discussion that was going on as it was playing out. So and yeah, definitely would I was kind of interested and still am to have experienced it on the other side, to be someone who was watching and kind of go, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I think CJ, I think he could hold on and win this whole thing because of how much time he put on everybody else in the first half.
Yeah, like that gap was so substantial. So like you're running with the chase pack, you guys end up catching up with CJ. I mean you call it the chase pack. It's like the lead but chase pack really.
No.
Um did you know like the other guys up there like okay, this guy's really good closer, like I'm not going to be able to keep up with him if it's down to like the last 800 meters? Like what was your thought process there?
Um, Honestly, I think, but so we caught up to CJ right around 20 miles, and I think at that point, I wouldn't say I was playing it safe, but I feel as though the first two marathons I did, the first trials especially, I think I got, sort of lured into getting excited at 20 miles
Mm-hmm.
and not really respecting the fact that 10K is a long way to go at the end
Yeah.
of a marathon, and I kind of paid for it. So I think I was a little more measured in terms of my approach this time, of just kind of wanting to sort of really make sure that I was just trying to maintain contact with the other guys as best I could, and not worry at all about sort of anything like, oh, I need to try to break someone now if I'm going to break them at all. Because I think at that point I was mostly worried about breaking myself if I did too much. So yeah, I didn't really think too much about anyone else who's in the group. I was very impressed that CJ turned around and just kept rolling with us when we
Yeah, still
did
grabbed
catch him.
10th.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was yeah, because you've definitely seen people before go out hard in marathons, and when you hit the wall, you hit the wall, and your pace keeps creeping higher and higher, and there's no recovering. But it seemed like CJ was kind of happy to sort of wait for us to catch him and then pick right back up and start running hard with us again, which was really impressive because he took off flying down the hills once we got over into like the Boston College
Mm.
kind of section.
Yeah, he really rallied. It's so hard too because yeah, if you really blow up, like if you went out really really too hard, like there's really no recovering from that. So it's interesting and pretty cool that he was able to hang on. And I mean 10th place, that's still so good. Um
Oh yeah.
what course is harder, Boston or the trials course?
Ooh. I think I think I'd probably maybe just rose-colored glasses at this point, but I think I'd say the trials course might have been a bit
Uh-huh.
tougher. And honestly, as much as anything, I just very specifically remember with 2 miles to go, they brought us right under um, I think it was the Olympic torch or some big sign they had by the old Olympic Stadium when they were in Atlanta, and we just had to do this hairpin turn with about 2 miles to go. And to be fair, I was kind of hitting the wall there, so I was not feeling great. But I just remember having to put a hairpin turn
Mm.
into my legs and just completely slow down to a stop, basically, and then pick back up, and that definitely hurt. Um, but I don't know. I think Atlanta had just enough sort of ups and downs in it, even more than Boston at times, that stung me a little bit more, and maybe just like that. I just have a little bit fonder memories of Boston because I didn't get beat up quite as bad, but I think Atlanta was a bit of a tougher course.
Yeah. A hairpin turn sounds not fun at all
Yeah.
when you're running the speeds that you guys are running on these courses. So, what was that like running the trials as your debut marathon? I know you weren't the other person I obviously think of when I think of debut marathon at the trials is Molly Seidel.
Yeah.
Um, so you ran Houston half in 61:46 to qualify, right?
It might have been 62.
Oh,
I don't know if I was
62.
quite. Yeah.
So
I
what?
can't remember though,
Okay, what was that
but I
like
think it was.
though? Like being like, okay, I'm gonna debut the marathon here on this stage.
Um, it was. I think it was definitely very exciting. I think I was hoping for a little bit of uh bump from being kind of naive going into it and maybe not knowing exactly how much
Uh
it could hurt at the end.
huh.
Just being that kind of the young kid who gets to go in and just kind of just happy to be here, looking around and soaking it all in. And obviously, I benefited greatly from training with Martin Heher the whole way, and he had run one before that at CIM, I think in 2019, and so he kind of had some good experience running the marathon at that point, and so I was able to kind of get enough good information from him and just kind of push all the bad stuff to the side and ignore that as best I could. But I think it was cool. As I said, I think that sort of immaturity to some extent might have bit me in the butt a little bit with making a move too early, but it's kind of hard to not get too excited at a Olympic trials marathon or just any sort of big event like that and want to sort of shoot your shot a little bit and try to make your move. But I think it was a really cool way of experiencing my first one. And I think it just made me that much more excited to sort of get another shot at it at another big event, um, and which is why Boston was super super cool to be able to have that as sort of the follow up for the big marathon event.
Yeah, so are you kind of figuring out like the balance of shooting your shot but not like getting too excited because there's this like risk situation, right? Like I got to take the risks to podium. You got to like
Hmm.
make moves at some point, but like you want to be smart about it and calculated.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and it does. I would say I think I've especially with Boston, I was just a little more patient this time in
Mm.
terms of not wanting to sort of even pick it up, an extra 1% too early and find out that, I went, I just burned too many candles, and didn't have enough to get myself through the line because there are a few things worse in my mind than getting to that last, sort of mile or two and realizing it's a battle to just kind of stay on my feet at this point, let alone actually kind of feel as though I'm picking up the pace into the finish. So yeah, I think some of it just comes with age and just, Coach Fox has said to me before, and I kind of agree with it at this point where, you know, really going through a marathon build up, all the miles you put in your legs and all the good hard workouts you do, sort of regardless of how your marathon goes, even if it's, not quite as good as you want it to be, you almost always come out the other side a stronger runner. And so I think I've benefited from that as well. A little bit of just having a better mindset going into the races, but then just sort of having, another year and a half
Mm.
of sort of really strong running in my legs has definitely gone a long way. And I think allowing me to feel a little more comfortable having the move be, having my me shooting my shot be something that isn't quite so sort of taxing on my legs or body.
Yeah, yeah. Those seasons upon seasons of training are building and you're still like pretty young, for a marathoner. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm definitely thrilled to have sort of gotten a early jump on it, and maybe definitely part of me is, maybe might have missed out. Maybe I wish I still could have been one of those track guys, but I'm very happy with with where I am, and
Yeah, you're
I
all
think
in.
marathon's a cool place to be.
All in on the marathon. Okay, let's talk about Reebok and the group. I've had Marty on the podcast before, and he very much tips his hat to you for being a phenomenal training partner. And I know you guys ran on the championship team at Syracuse, and so you guys go way back with Coach Fox as well. So it just seems like a really special group that you all have.
Yeah, no, we're really thrilled with the group we have down here, and honestly, everyone just really seems to work super well together and buy in on just sort of like the highest possible level. And I think for guys like Marty and I and Justin, we benefited from not having to sort of make a switch in terms
Mm.
of style of training, just because it was pretty much the same kind of workouts we were doing the whole time we were at Syracuse. And some of the other guys, like Ben Flanagan, I know he's had a bit of he had some relative growing pains in terms of just getting used to the sort of the types of workouts that Coach Fox likes to give. But he was very quick in sort of just saying, "All right, this is how we do things now, and I'm here for it." And he between Ben, Graham Crawford, Alex Rogers, and like that Justin's here too. Our men's group is running super well together, and everybody likes taking their fair share of leads in workouts. And I think we all just enjoy being around each other. And I think Coach Fox has made a pretty similar to sort of college recruiting, and just he likes to bring people in who he knows will kind of fit his sort of team culture. And I think it definitely helps to keep everybody kind of happy and sort of interested in making themselves and everyone around them that much better of a runner.
Yeah. So wait, where's Marty now? I know he's like doing the doctor thing, but he's not locally with you guys.
He actually is. Yeah,
Oh,
he
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 is.
moved. Yes, he moved. He started his residency in Charlottesville just this past July. So he's been here about 6 months.
Oh, I bet that was exciting to be able to get matched there. I mean, that had to be kind of like a long
Yes.
shot.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It was super exciting. I know it was there might have been, I think there were probably only two other places that he and his wife were like really kind of excited about
Mm.
the prospect of being matched with. And for it to work out here, I think they both like Charlottesville a lot as a place to have their family. And obviously we benefit greatly from having Marty around a little bit more for running.
Yeah. Do you all like? I mean, obviously you run together all the time, but are you all like hanging out outside of running? Is this like your crew, or do you like what does your friendship circle look like?
I think I'd say our friendship circle really is pretty much the team down here. Some people definitely have a few sort of friends or other people who kind of extend outside of that. But for the most part, if we're hanging out in and around Charlottesville, going out, grabbing a bite to eat, getting drinks or anything like that, it's usually just texting other people on the team and seeing who wants to meet up, kind of thing.
What's the Coach Fox dynamic? I talk to athletes who like the coach is like serious business, like this is our relationship, and then I talk to other people who like, for instance, here I'll give two examples: Bowerman Track Club, Jerry Schumacher's like I'm the coach, like that, and then
Hmm.
like out at Mammoth, Dina Castor and Andrew Castor are very much like everybody's coming over for team dinners to our house and things like that. So what's it like with Coach Fox?
I think he's somewhere in between.
Okay.
I think he's very very laid back when we're at practice, and when you're chatting with him, there's he definitely he wants to make sure that he checks all the boxes of what he has to do as a coach, and that we're in a good spot for training and racing coming up and all that, and he makes sure that all that's done. But then we were just having a conversation. I want to say it was last week sometime, where our assistant coach Adam Smith um, was just asking people. He was like, "All right, so like you guys are all kind of getting to the age where this question might work for you." And he's like, how old do you think you are? We know how old like you are in
Mm.
terms of years, but like in your own mind, how old do you think you are?" And he asked Coach Fox the question. Coach Fox was like, "Yeah, no, I think I'm still 25 in my own head." So he's kind of, he definitely just likes hanging out with us too, but he's not one to invite people over to hang out at the house or anything like that. I think he likes keeping it a little bit separate.
How old is Coach Fox?
That's a good question. I think he just over 60 maybe.
Oh, okay. He's a little bit older than I would have guessed then.
Yeah.
Um, that is a really interesting question. And as I age, I'm 38. I'm like, it's just weird. Getting older is weird. You do still feel like your same self. Like you don't,
Right.
like, and I was just thinking about this morning. I'm like, am I going to still feel like this when I'm 60? I'm supposed to be like older and wiser and all these things, but yeah, as I approach 40, looking back, it's a weird thing. Like I don't feel like I'm almost 40. That's so weird.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that was that was where Coach Smith was he brought it up because he plays a lot of like rec sports outside of just for fun, and he was just kind of pointing out that he was like, man, he's like, my body feels like it's about 40 some odd years old, but my brain still feels like I'm just like 25. So
Yeah.
it's yeah. So it's you're absolutely right. It is a pretty funny and interesting kind of introspective thing to think about.
I mean, yeah, I definitely like when I wake up in the morning and walk down the stairs, I'm like, why does my body feel achy? I am not
Yeah.
supposed to feel like
Yeah.
that yet. What is
Right.
happening here?
Right. Right.
Okay, so what did you learn from the Boston Marathon that you'll take with you to your next race?
Um, I think the biggest thing is probably just like trusting how all the training went into the race as being sort of the best indication of how it's going to end up, and just kind of giving myself a little bit more of a chance because I remember it was it was relatively early on in the race, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 miles in, something like that. So kind of pretty early for a marathon where there were moments where I was kind of going, oh man, I think my legs are, they're hurting a little bit more than I anticipated them to hurt at this point, just compared to the previous marathons where, feels as though people are always talking about how the the ideal marathon is basically get to 20 miles feeling like you're barely running at all, and then you can think about racing after that. And felt like I really needed to kind of buckle down a little bit earlier. And I that there were definitely some moments because of that sort of surprising level of discomfort early on in the race where I was kind of second guessing
Mm.
how ready I was for the race. And I just kind of feel like I had to dial in a little bit more and just realize that there was nothing I could do at that point, and all I could do was keep running and keep finish out the race and see sort of where it took me. And ultimately, it worked out great. Probably 15, 16 miles in, everything kind of started to click a little bit, and I think yeah, I think it was I realized exactly that, just that sort of trusting where I was at before the race in terms of training was the best thing I could do, because races are roller coasters at times, and how you feel sort of early on is not always going to be the sort of true indicator of how you're going to feel an hour and a half later.
Yeah, like you can't give up on yourself early in the race. I think all the amateur runners who are, the majority of people listening to this podcast, like remember that, because I think that you can get in your head so much and think, well, this is just not going to be my day today, but
Hmm.
you just can't let that win.
Yeah, you're absolutely yeah. Really, that sums it up very nicely. And I mean, I couldn't tell you the number of times where I feel as though some of the best races I've had have happened after feeling really not too great on the warm up, and sort of vice versa. I've had days before where I feel amazing on a warm up for a race or a workout, and that's a day where I found myself getting towards the end of it and going, "Ooh, this is not as easy as I sort of thought it was going to be," or this hurts a lot more than I thought it would. So yeah, kind of just not counting yourself out is really the best way of summing it up.
How do you get your head back in the right place? Like when you kind of like second guessed yourself in Boston for, I don't know how long you second guessed, a minute, a mile, whatever. How'd you get back in?
Yeah, I think I just had to. I just spent a little while reminding myself that that was exactly sort of where I wanted to be, and sort of if it went well or if it went bad, I was going to be happy that I did it, and it was sort of it meant a lot to me to even just be there on that day, and I think it helped me just sort of really appreciate the whole experience that much more for what it was, as opposed to, you know, being too focused and dialed in on what place I got or
Mm.
how fast I ran, kind of thing. And I think that it's definitely a little freeing to just sort of remember that a lot of us, hopefully all of us, run because we love to run, and it's more that as opposed to being too caught up in performance.
But at some point, you were like, probably like, I better have this top 10 locked in, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think that was later on. That was once the legs came back under
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I talked to Marty after the trials, when he placed sixth, we kind of talked about, um, it seemed like to me from other interviews I've done that Coach Fox's approach as far as like marathon pace workload was more conservative than other, you know, people's training that I'd heard about. Do you feel like that's true?
I would say so. Yes, yeah. We don't really get to, you know, our sort of big volume days for workouts really don't ever get too much beyond 8 to 10 miles of
Yeah.
work at marathon
Huh.
pace for us. Um, and it's pretty, I'd say either it's usually about once every 2 weeks over the course of the marathon build up. So pretty much just every other Saturday we end up doing some form of workout or tempo or fart, like in sort of in the midst of the long run, which I think kind of I feel it almost helps, I think, to simulate the marathon even a little bit better, even though the actual marathon effort work is a little bit shorter compared to what we could do. I think it just ends up doing a good job of sort of making sure that we don't tax ourselves too much and give ourselves a chance to recover, to come back for a good week of training the following week, but still, give us 8 to 10 miles of hard running in the middle of a 20-22 mile long run. And I think it's just, for me anyway, I found it's just a really good balance of making sure that you spend enough sort of minutes making sure that the that marathon pace is just kind of a natural thing for your legs without kind of digging yourself into too much of a hole at any point over the course of training.
Yeah, like overtraining can be it's like probably a little bit hard to balance mentally, like overtraining will kill your race if you overtrain, right? But like I understand how some people fall into it because the confidence you would get from killing 16 or 18 miles at marathon pace is probably really high. But like, what are you running for? That or for your race?
Right, exactly right. Yeah, and the sort of reminding yourself that the race is the race, and workouts leading up to it are all to get you even more ready for that. But yeah, you don't want to spend too much of your sort of physical energy or even emotional energy getting too caught up in kind of going to the well at all for workouts. And I think you sort of talking about overtraining, it reminded me of speaking with Coach Fox about it, because I know he said before that pretty much he'd rather train someone for the marathon and get them 90 or 95% prepared for the marathon, as opposed to 101% prepared.
Mm.
As soon as you like creep over the line of perfect preparation and you overtrain even a little bit, it seems as though the negative impact that can have on your race probably far outweighs what you would stand to lose being just a little bit undertrained.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree with that. What's your demeanor like on race morning? Are you quiet? Are you chatty?
I'm probably quiet. I think I'm naturally kind of a quiet person.
Okay.
So it doesn't change too much. I know Coach Fox at times is I'd say he's sort of equally typically a pretty quiet guy, but he's admitted before that if he gets extra nervous on race days, sometimes he'll start getting a little extra chatty and start telling jokes and stuff like that,
Like
which
to
is
you
always funny to
guys?
see. Yes, yeah. I remember one of I forget which year it was, but there was one year when we were in the van driving over to NCAA to cross country nationals. And I remember he like told everyone a joke, and I think we all laughed and thought it was funny, and we just kind of went, "What is going on right now?" And I forget, it was either Coach Smith or Coach Bell who kind of pointed out to us that he was like, I think he's a little nervous for you guys because and just for himself because he can't go out there and race, you know.
Yeah.
And now it's just all in your guys' hands at this point.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the hardest parts of being a coach is like knowing where you are, but also just being totally out of my control on race day. I
Right.
can't get in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
What a cool, I mean, what a cool and unique relationship that is. I don't know, and maybe you know of other groups, but I don't know of other groups who had so many guys that ran, together, and their college coach who took them to a national championship is now their professional coach. I mean, can you think of any other group like that?
Not really. I definitely didn't pay enough attention to the running world back before, but um, I mean, I guess maybe Jerry and Mohamed and
Evan
Evan
Jager.
Jager.
Yeah.
I think that would be. I think those guys would be the only ones who it could be close or similar.
Yeah, that's what as soon as that spilled out of my mouth, I immediately thought of Evan Jager. I forgot that Mo also ran at Wisconsin. But yeah, I mean, that's just really special. And like not having to make those adaptations to like what a new coach is like and all those things like you mentioned earlier, that's really freaking cool. Okay, we have to touch on the marathon project a little bit, because I mean I feel like it just makes sense to talk about the 3 marathons that you have run. So we've touched on
Sure.
Boston and the trials. The marathon project was like the coolest thing for us fans because it was just like something to do and exciting because it's like the
Yeah.
best marathoners in our country are all coming together to run as fast as they freaking can. um I feel like I overlooked you though. I mean, you got third at the marathon project. I interviewed Marty and Noah like right after the race, but like, hello, Colin Bennie, here you are, and you placed seventh at Boston. And I think guys like Marty would be like, why isn't anybody talking about Colin? So I'm excited to finally have you on the show. But 209, what does that put you at? 209.38. What number are you for all time American?
I actually don't know off the top of my head because I think I think Marty benefited greatly from being further down the list, but I remember when people brought it up, just with sort of different like Boston times or other times that could have been considered um, legal or not. I know I think it's somewhere in the top 20 for
Okay.
sure, but I'm not sure exactly where on the list it lies.
So was that, I mean, breaking 210, I feel like that's like a big barrier that a lot of people want to hit. Was that your goal that day?
Yes, yeah, for sure. We I remember going into the race, having spent a lot of time with training with Marty that fall, talking about 210 just over and over again, and having it be that would probably have been like a great day would have been breaking 210 because at the time, for most of the fall, we were talking about how perfect setup would be going through half marathon in exactly 65 minutes and then you know, from there, if we're feeling good, sort of just go for it and see how fast you can run after that. And then I think I remember it was once we might have been in the days leading up to it or leading up to heading out to Arizona or once we got there and we found out the lead group was going out in 64:30. I remember Marty and I kind of looking at each other going, I mean, we don't really want to run by ourselves. So I think we're just gonna have to
Mm.
go for it. But it was definitely a little bit of a change of plan in terms of what we had sort of discussed between ourselves about it. But so yeah, to have it work out like that, it's it really was a pretty perfect day in terms of conditions and the course, while it might have been sort of less exciting than some other marathon courses, it more than got the job done in terms of being, you know, just a perfect track to let us run fast. And I was really happy. And there was definitely that was another day where, when Marty made his move, Noah went with him, and I kind of made the decision to go with him too. And then about a mile to go, I realized I probably bit off a little more than I could chew, and it was kind of survival mode at that point. So that was another good learning experience for me. But it was yeah, and as you pointed out, for the fans, it was really neat to just have something to watch, and for all of us, really, it was really cool to sort of be guys who focused more on the marathon, having a chance to run what could have been, the I think for a lot of people probably was their last marathon before racing this fall.
Yeah.
So to just kind of have that sort of unexpected opportunity to go out and feel as though we didn't just sit around for 8 months waiting for an opportunity that didn't materialize. It was pretty nice to be able to get out there and just go do it.
So you said on one of your Instagram posts that you hope to see Boston soon, I think, right? Did you say that? Or did I make that up?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so like, do you want to run it in the spring? I know you can't announce things yet, but is that on your radar?
It's definitely on my radar. I mean, I think especially with a good experience, it's so hard to not want to just have the next thing planned right away kind of thing. And so, maybe I was being a little too optimistic or excited, hoping to get right back onto it. But, it's a quick turnaround, but it definitely hasn't been ruled out yet. And I think it would be really, really cool to get the chance to sort of have do the back to back of the only fall Boston
Yeah.
to the spring Boston, just one after the other.
Yeah, it's super unique. I'm interested to see what that field will look like in the spring, considering that turnaround.
Yeah, yeah. So it'd be pretty exciting, and it was just an unbelievable atmosphere. So who knows at this point?
Okay, now my head is like all over the place because like so many races were in the fall because of COVID. What are your other spring marathon options?
Really, I don't think too many. I forget if is London typically in. I can't remember that one.
I'm really glad that you can't remember either because it seems like something I should know, and now I'm feeling confused.
Yeah, no,
I think it
it's
is in the
definitely.
spring normally. No,
Yeah, I
but
think it's.
somebody listening is like, no, no, no. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I can't even remember. It has just been crazy enough of last few years that
Yeah.
it's hard to keep track at this
Okay,
point.
look, friends, this is his real job, his professional job, and he can't remember either.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is where Google is everybody's best friend.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, so in your first of all, in your thing we sent and we asked you what you're interested in. I love that your dog's name is Louie.
Yes, he's adorable. I love him as well.
I have a
It's a good
son.
name.
I have a son named Lewis. So,
Oh, dude, that's
yeah.
great.
And I always say that I love dog names that are also good human names. So, I'm very much approving of your dog name.
I like it. That is the sort of I needed some confirmation that it was a good one. I'm glad you approve. Hopefully, I imagine your Louis a little bit better behaved than
I
mine one.
don't know.
Depends on the day, I'm sure, right?
Um, my other one of my other son's names is Russell, and I also think that Russ is a great dog name. So if anybody needs a dog name, I'm just throwing that out there to you.
One of our former teammates and roommates, Rob Demanic, has a dog named Rusty,
Oh,
and he lived.
Rusty.
Yeah, so in just until this past August, we had Rusty and Louie in this house.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so
So,
good. Well, it's funny because when we named Lewis, we didn't know if we would call him Lewis, Louie, or Lou.
mm,
And he's very much Lewis. Sometimes I say Lou, but he's definitely not a Louie. But Russell, he goes by Russell, and every once in a while we joke around and we're like, "Come on over here, Rusty." And
Yeah,
he
there you
gets
go.
mad though. He's like, "Don't call me Rusty." But yeah, it's funny how those nicknames turn about. So that's good. Okay, well, great. Your friend with the dog also has good taste. Great to know.
Yes.
Okay, so let's wrap up with end of podcast here. What's something professionally or personally you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
Um, I think maybe it's a pretty normal answer, but I think just travel a little bit
Mm,
more. I think a lot of there's obviously so many good races to run here in the US. So this is on the professional side that, sometimes it's easy to not get drawn into, a London or Berlin or any of the big European races. But even just in life too, I feel like the bucket list of places to visit just grows pretty much daily. I don't know if I swear, you have if you I don't know if you have an Apple TV or a Fire TV, but some of them, they have the like automatic screensavers where they'll show you these really cool places, and it just kind of goes like, all right, well, I should write that name down because that place looks like a really awesome spot to stay. So yeah, so I think getting the opportunity to go out and check some of those places off the list would be pretty neat.
well, it's pretty cool that you can do that with your job for some of them to travel.
Yes, exactly right. Kind of an added perk. One of our teammates, Josette Norris, had
Mm.
an exceptionally great summer of racing, and when she finished up over in Europe with the Diamond League, she stayed and popped into Italy for a quick visit and seeing some of her pictures. Like, oh man, that must have been just a great perk of getting to go to Europe to run some races.
Yeah, and if you can build in those extra few days after the race, it's like, man, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I honestly, Marty has always been very sort of vocal about that. Usually after the fact, where we're kind of kicking ourselves, where we get to travel places. We were all out in, I specifically remember when we were out in California for the Sound running meet this past May, where he was just going, man, we all need to do a better job of doing exactly that. Just adding a few days to the end of the itinerary after the race and just sort of really get to experience the sort of location where we're staying. Because sometimes if you get in 2 days before the race, you end up going to your hotel and pretty much not leaving until the race.
And then heading home.
Exactly.
Okay, what's the best, most recent book you've read?
Um, One that's I feel like it got probably gotten a lot of attention is that Dune book because they just came out with a movie.
Okay.
Um, and so I was definitely motivated to go read that. Um, and so that one's fiction. And then I think probably the best nonfiction I've read recently was Range by David Epstein.
Okay.
And yeah, it's nice I like to kind of bounce around time to time with fiction and nonfiction just to feel like I'm learning something new.
Me too. I have to have one of each going so I can have an escape and then also feel like I'm being productive.
Yeah, there you go. Right, exactly.
Who's someone fun, motivating, or inspiring you'd like to have coffee, tea, or cocktail with?
Ooh. I think if I have two, is that okay? I know I just gave
Sure.
two to the last one too, but I feel
Love it.
like I feel like another once again it's sort of a more fun one and then more of a like inspirational one. I'm always a Dwayne the Rock Johnson fan. I feel like he's always been a guy who just seems super he seems very positive and just
Mhm.
kind of, unapologetically himself, and I think that's pretty cool. And then uh, David Attenborough. I feel like that man, he's the voice of all the like nature documentaries and Planet Earth and all that stuff. And I listened to I listened to his book. I think he just came out with a book on not too long ago, and I listened to it as an audiobook not long ago, and just some of his experiences seem super cool. And he's pretty committed to just kind of saving the world and helping to make it a better place. And I think that's a pretty inspirational thing right there.
I love that answer. That's definitely, I'm sure I've heard The Rock before, but I've definitely never heard of
Yeah,
this other guy. I love that. Okay, Colin, I almost called you Benny.
that's all right.
I do that with my friend Erica Sarah all the time. I always accidentally call her Sarah because it's like you have a
Two
first
first
name, last
names.
name. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Colin, what is your last message to leave with the audience today?
Ooh. Probably another one that imagine people have heard before, but yeah, you don't know, just I guess surround yourself with good people. I think you kind of you hit on it when you were asking me about and just talking about the group we have here and how cool it is that been able to spend so much time with Coach Fox and teammates and guys who I got to go to college with, and now I get to run with professionally, and I think it's it's something that just makes life a lot more enjoyable to have people who appreciate you for who you are and who make you want to be a better person or a better runner or a bit of both.
And there are good people everywhere. So that's a pep talk. If you've just moved like me, you will find good people.
There you go. Just a matter of time.
That's right. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate you having me on. This was great.